Hi, we're Scott and Linda Elliott, and we've been married for 31 years this year. Most of those years were good and joyful years, but we did have a very rough time early in our marriage that we would like to share today. We want to communicate to others that may be in a similar situation that there is always hope, no matter how dire the situation looks, and that hope is always found in God Himself. Due to circumstances, some outside of our control, but really mostly due to poor financial decisions I had made, we accumulated a substantial amount of debt. Coupling that with, we had 3 daughters born within 17 months, and this just put an incredible strain on our marriage. We, at that time, were financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically bankrupt, and we did not see much hope at that time.
We argued a lot during those years, and every argument was a brick, and that every brick built a wall that eventually drove us apart. The funny thing was, or the ironic thing was, we were leaders in our church, and no one knew of our struggles. We had too much pride to ask for help. We had too much pride to admit that we needed help. And of course, we had to keep up that facade that we were the perfect family. I had to protect our children financially. And when I searched for help, all I found was the world's option, and that was divorce. So I began praying for another option.
At that time, I had retreated from a really difficult situation, mainly by avoidance, but also by working a lot of hours just to stay away from the situation. And then a group came to our church called Life Action Ministries for a 10-day revival. Well, we looked at each other and said, there is no way that we're going to go to 10 straight nights of services, especially considering the situation we were in. But we would go the first night just to show how fine we were and to keep up that facade that we had pretty carefully built.
That first night of the revival, we found God's answer, and that was forgiveness. We realized and acknowledged that we could not heal our marriage and our finances by ourselves. We recognized that neither one of us alone were at fault. So we turned to each other that night and looked at each other and said, "Will you forgive me?" We also went to God and asked for forgiveness for many things, among which were anger, pride, resentment, and disobedience. He was faithful to forgive us. And at that moment, the wall that we had built literally dissolved, and we began to heal.
Although that wall came down in a moment, the healing and rebuilding did not happen overnight. Although we had asked each other for forgiveness and then asked God for forgiveness, God did not take away the consequences of a lot of the decisions that we'd made. And so literally the rebuilding and healing process took years. But through God's grace and God's patience and patience with each other, we were able to rebuild our marriage and rebuild our finances.
Part of that rebuilding process was Scott stepping up and becoming the spiritual head of our household. By doing so, it totally changed the dynamic of our family for the good. And through this, God was able to, this was very important for the ongoing health of our marriage and our family.
The rest of the story is that yes, we did go to every single night of that revival, and the 10 days ended up being 17 days. We didn't see necessarily a church-wide revival, and honestly, we don't know of anyone else who was helped. It may have been that entire event was just for one couple in trouble who were short on time and short on hope. Although you may think that the problems that you're struggling with are unique and then no one else is facing those same problems. That is absolutely not true. That is a lie straight from Satan, meant to isolate you and to destroy your hope. What we like about Cottonwood Creek is no matter what we're going through, no matter what you're going through, you do not have to walk alone. There are people here to help, come alongside you in prayer and in assistance to get you through those times. And although it may not seem like it in the situation that you're in right now, as long as God is on his throne, there is always hope. There's hope for your family, there's hope for your relationships, there's hope for your future, there's hope for your kids, there's hope for your finances, there's hope for your health. When we confess our sins to Jesus Christ and put him in the proper spot in the center of our lives, that is when miracles can occur. Our marriage is a miracle. God took us from what can only be described as floundering and failure through forgiveness to fantastic. And we are thankful that we're where we are today. We are prayerful that this entire Transform series will help us become closer to the God of the universe that saw fit to help us with the problems in our marriage. And we hope that you will find meaning in this series as well.